The things I do to keep you happy, Mr. Gonzalez.
You know,
The
that
things
was,
I do.
I like that countdown.
We've been doing little shows for about a year, and he's always wanting a countdown of some sort. So there you go. You happy with the countdown?
The countdown is good, but I wanted more of like a blast, like bam, like
Oh my gosh.
I
Never
wanted a
happened. Maybe
bam.
that's why you're single still, you think?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
had
where
that
we're going.
Valentine's thing. That's
That's where we're going. All right, tell
wow.
us something controversial, Chris, about the whole housing world, and introduce our guest. Or
Okay,
maybe the
we
Solo
got
Show. I
the
don't know yet.
Gayor group down below me. We got the Gayor group, and then we also have Alex again on the right of me. Controversial. What is going on with these Federal Reserve's cartoon blowups? I mean, seriously, what's going on with the Federal Reserves? How many times are we going to have to raise these rates? What is, quite honestly, our clients going to be able to afford these houses? How much is it going to go up?
Oh, is it going to go to crap? Is it really going to people? I know, Daniel, you see it. People are begging for this market to shift so they can come in here and buy a bunch of houses. Is it going to go to crap? That's a question.
So no, it's not. So a lot of people. So we just did an open house. Some of you saw that. We went live with that over the weekend. A lot of people came through, and their thoughts were, I want to wait for the market to correct. And I told them, don't do that. We're so short on inventory as a whole. At least they're here in the Albuquerque area. We're overall got twice as much in pending as we have actually on the market. And those numbers are down almost, meaning our inventory is down probably about 85% compared to, say, 5 years ago.
So what are we at, like 600-ish, I think?
600, and we were, what, 5,000 roughly 5 years ago?
3 to 4 is a comfortable number.
Yeah. So at any rate, way, way, way lower. Now, the house that I held open, there were, 30 on the market that were comparable under 525,000. There were 188 that were pending and closed in the last 60 days.
How many people did you get at your open house, Daniel?
Let's see. We had 17 the first day and probably another 15 the second day.
So just talking to the buyers, what do you think their sentiment is with the whole market right now?
They're disappointed because it's hard to get a house. Some of them are quitting shopping, and that's probably the worst thing you could do, because it's not going to get any better. So even though this house had, I think we had 4 or 5 offers before we accepted one, and it was a cash deal. So, but that made things challenging. But the agent was really smart. He called me and he said, what can I do to write an offer that is going to be acceptable to the sellers? So if you are an agent and you're putting in offers, you would do yourself good to call that agent and say, hey, it's been really competitive. We lost a lot. What would you advise? I can't give them the magic number, but I can tell them things that are deal breakers to sellers, like wanting to negotiate certain things. Like with our listings, some of you guys know we do a pre-listing, we do the cures, we offer it with a home warranty for a couple reasons. One is if we get into a multiple offer situation, I want everybody who put in an offer to know what they're getting themselves into so that deal doesn't fall apart. But the other thing is people feel comfortable. It's like, okay, I can move forward with this. But
it's like quickly, if you could just go sum up what your prediction is for the market this next year, what do you think is going to happen?
Prices will hold or go up.
Market, what's going to happen?
Oh, it's going to stay seller's market. It's not a seller's market. It's a super seller's market. Unless they're going up to places like you and I are going where there's a little bit more inventory. But down south, meaning from Florida to California, it's going to be a seller's market for, what do you think? I foresee a pretty solid 10 years.
10 years at least.
Whoa. Yeah. I don't think it'll be that long.
You don't?
No, I don't predict it's going to be that long. And we'll look at some charts. I love charts. We got some sexy numbers here. And the reality is, we've been appreciating for a long time now. And what the feds are going to do, like Chris is saying, they are going to deliberately slow this thing down. They've done it before, and they're going to do it again. I want to touch on one little thing, which is kind of interesting because, as agents, we call it a seller's market, meaning there's not much supply, meaning we'll be out of houses in 2 weeks if no more houses come on the market. So that's why we're defining it as a seller's market. I was watching this video, and this guy had an interesting point. He called it a strong buyer's market, and this is why. Because if a buyer bought a house a year ago in this supposed seller's market, they would have still made 17 to 20% appreciation. So the way he's looking at it is it's not necessarily just favoring sellers. Buyers who take advantage of it and jump in now are doing quite well. You know what I mean? I know that doesn't fit the definition of a buyer or seller's market, but I thought that was an interesting take he had on it.
Or I see it as it's a housing market. If you have one, you're making money.
Which gets us into speculation issues, which I think we'll talk about a little bit. It's like the big housing crash that we had before. I mean, I was a little young to remember it completely. Wait, no, I wasn't. I was in the
No, you weren't young.
No,
you weren't
no,
young. I was young.
Yeah, whatever. But it was interesting what happened on that one. Let me see if I got the chart on this. So just nerdy stuff here. So we're just looking at, this is just appreciation, right? So if we look, we had a downturn in 93, 94. Do you guys remember what happened then?
Right.
You guys were college age, weren't you?
93, 94. I was college age.
In 93.
Anyway, I graduated in 89.
So there was a thing that happened there. And then if we look, we got a little dip, and then we had this crazy run right here. So like at this point, 2005 to 2008, everybody and their mother was building houses. There was, I think in Albuquerque, 7,000 houses on the market. I mean, an insane number of inventory. And then what? The world fell apart. Boom. So this was the first time in 20-something years that we had negative appreciation. So right there. Okay? Remember the double dip recession they talked about? Boom, boom. So we had that. So this is the only time we actually went backwards, though, is in that period. But if we look back right here, what happened in 94, I had to do a little research because, senior in high school, I wasn't really paying attention to economics, was the Reserve started controlling interest rates. They started going up. And they actually had a 2-point increase on mortgage rates, which caused this slowdown. I think this is what we're going to have right here. Our appreciation is going to drop considerably down to, I think we'll get down to 3-ish before they let it go back up.
Well, we got to.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well,
what does this chart look like to you, Daniel? What do you see on this?
Well, what I'm thinking is different between, let's say, that peak of 2005 and where we're at right now. Is in 2005 we had nationwide 10 months overall of inventory.
Absolutely.
So we don't have that. The other thing is they were giving away loans to anybody who had a pulse, and that was maybe even a given. It wasn't a given that they would give you that, So they're giving away loans to anybody who walked in the door. So Chris,
you mortgage people created that whole problem, didn't you?
No, not necessarily. I mean,
it was a whole industry.
Yeah, I think it was a whole industry. But again, like Daniel said, yes, we're going to go back to that part. Because it's a better buy for any hedge fund out there to get a 580, 590 credit score with more skin in the game for, 20% down at a 5.5 interest rate. At one point, we're going to go back to what they're called as non-quality mortgages with the higher rate, more skin in the game. It's a return better for the investor.
So let's talk about that too, because interest rates for banks can't stay this low.
Right.
No, they're going up. Everything is going to go up. Interest rates are going to go up. They went up a little, didn't they, Chris?
Yeah, they went up a little.
Have a half point here.
If they're predicting the rates will rise to 4% this year, and that's the Mortgage Bankers Association. But
I don't think that's high
I
enough.
think
I think we need to get to 5.
I don't know, and that's the thing, here's where it's crazy is that how much really buying power you're going to have with the higher interest rates, right? And by them increasing it 3 times in 2022 and possibly 3 times in 2023, well, that's going to slow down, of course, the purchasing power. But also, when you're thinking about it, they're thinking if we slow down the purchasing power, they're going to put more money into the economy, which is going to lower the inflation and which is going to offset everything. That's what they're thinking. That's going to lower, the inflation because we're at a 7, right? So, of course, back in 80s and the 90s, inflation rate was really low, but we had the higher interest rates. And then as inflation increased, the rates went down a little bit. But I think that's what the Federal Reserve's actually thinking. I mean, just by reading is, the inflation rate, because we're at a 7 right now. I mean, and
the last thing I read was what that equates to is about $300 a month more in expenses for the average family. Right. So if we're looking at $300 more in expenses, right, and we're looking at a house payment now jumping up $100, $150 because of interest rates, and we got 10% appreciation, I think we're going to reach the point where the average person is now looking at other options instead of home ownership. Right. This is a funny thing that I think happened in this whole COVID piece. Owning a home became a necessity. Would you agree? It became a necessity. I think people believe
depends if you live in Los Angeles, not really.
Those guys have insane appreciation still, but it's still the importance of a home changed because of COVID. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. Yeah. And
it became your base. Your home became more important.
Yes.
Because it became your workplace as well.
Right. It became your gym.
I mean, look at us. We're all working from home.
Well,
except for you. You're working
in general.
Jail.
Well, true. We are kind of all working remote.
Going back to that. So if you get higher interest rates, and I'm thinking it's actually good news for the savers. The higher interest rates going to be good news for the savers. So I would assume, and just comment on this, but I would assume that the banking institution is going to have more. They're not going to go with the higher rates with the people that have more money in the bank. Wouldn't you agree?
What do you?
If you have a good abundance amount of savings at a federal credit union,
okay,
do you think that they're going to give you the going market interest rate then because you already have money with them? I think they're going to adjust it because you do have money with them. Maybe the bank mentality is going to be a little bit different now.
So you think they're going to take a hit on the rate just for lower risk people? Right. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Well, they want their money there, but traditionally, let's look at why rates this low is not good. So I used to work for the Housing Authority of New Mexico, and we used to release the bond pools. So what bond pools are, for some of the audience who doesn't know, is you would have $300 million worth of money available to lend out for, in our case, it was first-time home buyers. So let's say the interest rate on that pool was 4%.
Okay.
They would take all of those loans and they sell it to the secondary market. Well, the secondary market doesn't want to buy a pool of 3.25% loans because you're only getting 3.25% return on your money. So they really like, as investors, because we couldn't sell them, so we had to actually throw in several $1 million into the pool and say, hey, if you buy this, we'll include another several $1 million worth of money in there. And then they would sell it to the secondary market. You'd have more money to go lend some more. So it really comes down to investors. Investors don't want a 3.25% return. If you ever watch Shark Tank, if you told them, hey, you can get a 3.25% return, they say, okay, there's the door. So That's also going to be true for as what Chris is talking about. If you have people have money in the bank, they don't want to leave it in the bank. You're getting what, 0.25% on that?
Right.
You're destroying the value of your money with inflation. So it's going to be, people are going to put their money where they can get more money. So I think interest rates are going to go higher if we ever get to a place where Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are not buying the loans, because that's what's happened. The secondary market is the federal government, which is you and I, the taxpayer. So we're getting a terrible return on these mortgage-backed security bonds. So at some point, does the taxpayer own all of this at horrible rates, or do we go back to the private sector? And the private sector is going to say, these need to be at historic 6 or better.
Right. I mean, and then also now, if we're doing the increase in rates, so like, let's just say, for example, if the going interest rate is at 3.75, you have a $300,000 house, 30-year fixed, you're looking at roughly about $1,389 a month. Okay. Well, it would cost you $1,432 at a possible 4% interest rate, which is, what is that? Roughly difference about $43, $44, which in turn would be what, about $516 a year, and then $15,000 over the life of the loan.
Right.
Now, if rates rise to 4.5, then you'd be paying $131 over a month, and so, and that's like a $47,000 over the life of the loan. Now,
I think we all agree, though, interest rates are going up. That's not even a guess anymore. Interest rates are going up. Right?
They should have gone up a long time ago, but I think there's been a lot of political pressure.
Oh, agreed. They've wanted to keep this thing going because they're worried about the economy and other issues. I agree. I think it's been forced to be as big of a boom as it has been. That's why I think it will go the other way, because it has been manipulated. So we agree interest rates are going up. So we'll just
right.
We'll move on that point. Interest rates are up.
People always saying, are interest rates going to go down? I'm like, they're already at historic lows. What do you think is going to happen? They're likely to go to new historic lows.
It's still cheap money.
Almost.
Yeah, I think we'll see over 4.5 by the end of the year, which isn't that high. I mean, God, my last house loan was at 4.8, and I thought that was a good rate. Well, it's not 4.5. Isn't crazy. But Chris is saying, okay, so we get, like we were kind of going back to, so we're going to have an increased interest rate, right? So we're going to have more cost associated with home ownership. So the affordability is going to drop.
Right. So 1%. Well, for every 1% rate increase, we're looking at a decrease of about 10% of your buying power.
Yes. Okay. So that's going down. We've already got another $300 a month of added cost, right? That people have because of inflation, because meat is crazy expensive. I'm having to feed my kids, scraps.
You got a farm there. Just start growing rabbits or something.
So going,
shoot one of the deer in the backyard.
Alex, going back to that food, that's a big point, because if you look at the home or the food at home index, it rose 6.5% over the last 12 months.
Yes. So
okay. Does it feel like 6%? It feels more like 100% to me.
Well, that's insane. I mean, it's only supposed to increase 1.5 annually.
Okay, so that being said, all right, so let's move on to the next point of that. For affordability, has wages increased? Minimum has. I mean, God, these guys are getting, right. I'm out here in Cleveland, and they're getting $15 an hour, to work at McDonald's. What's Albuquerque? Are you guys seeing craziness on the bottom end?
I'm seeing people won't show up to work unless you pay them pretty high.
Okay, right. So how's the middle? Has the middle gotten a raise? How are our teachers? Are they getting raises yet?
Yeah, so they're passing one more thing that the government has to sign off on, where the teachers at a certain level will make up to $70-some thousand a year, compared to the, I think it was like compared to the 30,000 that there were. I mean, that's a huge increase for the teachers out here.
Double.
But then, of course, the shortage of teachers too. You got to think
pay helps if we get a little bit better pay. Okay, so pays also went up then, right? The question I have as pay went up in pace with inflation, with appreciation on housing, and with interest rates going up, right? I predict we're still out of line, right? I think we're out of line, and this is why
I
I think
think
it's
you're
going to
out of
slow
line.
down. You're out of line, buddy. You're out of line. But take a look real quick. This affordability index. This is the lowest it's been since the Great Recession of 2008. Right here. That's where we're at currently. And what the affordability means is the average person's income, their ability to afford the average priced house. So 100 means they make 100% of the amount of income needed to buy the average priced house. So when it gets below that, which we were at 98 for January, the average family doesn't even make enough money to purchase the average priced home. I think that is going to be a tremendous issue this next year. And I think going back to what I said earlier, right? It is not a necessity to own a home. I think people believed it was. Oh my God, I need to get a house. There ended up this frenzy, you know what I mean? Because everybody's getting a house, interest rates are going up. Let's get a house, let's get a house. And we got a lot of people that bought a house that aren't happy with it. I've got a couple clients now that want to sell. They bought a house because they thought they should. They're not happy. And I think people are going to go back a little bit to where they were before, where maybe mom's basement's not so bad. Renting's not a bad option. House hacking, maybe living in a van. I think they're going to look at alternative living situations.
Living in a tent off of Santa Monica Boulevard.
Absolutely.
Seattle,
I think they're going to start
Washington.
looking at that because of pricing, which is going to remove a lot of the buyers from this, mainly because it's not worth it anymore. What are your thoughts on that?
I kind of agree with that. Okay, so you guys have watched me move a lot, and every time I move, okay, it's a new project, and I'll throw $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 at a property. It's like, is it cheaper for me to just go find a nice place? And this is just me talking. Is it cheaper for me to go find a nice place? Because I've been listening to Grant Cardone, and he doesn't own his own primary. He owns a ton of investment properties, but he doesn't own his own primary. I'm like, okay, well,
a ton.
at first I thought that was dumb.
$2 billion worth of property.
Yeah, so at first I thought, well, that's dumb. But now I'm like, if you already rent a really nice place, you don't have closing costs to get in, you don't have renovation costs, and you don't have closing costs to get out if you do a lot of moving. You know, for me, it's like I live out of a P.O. box, so for my mailing. So I was like,
is it in one of those states that favors corporate tax rates and stuff? Is that what you got?
Well, you know, the main thing is you know, a lot of these projects, I mean, you guys have seen the homes I buy. It's like they're pretty distressed. Actually, you had one of them listed, Alex. But I spent this whole last week helping my son renovate that property. So, you know, yeah, I can see that for some people, because some of my tenants, they have credit scores in the 800s, but they don't want to deal with those things. You know, I think if you invest your money somewhere else, then you're probably okay. However, housing being a tangible asset really protects you from inflation, which is actually one of those slides I sent you.
All right, let me find that one real quick.
Yeah, it's a graph.
Is that it? Is that the one?
That's going to be rent. So if you're renting, though, I mean, you're going to pay a little bit more.
Well, I mean, we're not
that one right there.
And we're not trying to pitch home ownership or no own ownership.
Right.
Home ownership. I just
easy for you.
I just want to present and talk about what we think is going to happen.
So
if you want to buy a house, buy a house. If you don't,
this is what has happened historically. Is that the blue is the inflation rate, and the green is what houses have appreciated. There's only been 2 instances in the last 50 years where inflation outpaced housing. But take a look at what happened here in 2020 and 2021, and we anticipate this for 2022. So if you owned homes over these last, say, 3 years, or if you were an investor, you made a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So,
So yes,
so
we're having inflation, but real estate is still the best hedge against that.
realistic, because it's a tangible asset. You know what's really weird though
What?
is tangible assets.
Like
When I look
toilet
at
paper,
gold,
right? I think toilet paper is a better asset.
it
The world
depends if
goes
you
to
have
crap. That toilet paper is going to be worth something.
well, people are going to get those little squirt guns attached to their toilets.
Bidet.
Oh, that's not good.
I thought about it during the last pandemic, but
Really?
think about it. The one asset that hasn't really appreciated like housing is gold and silver, which is really weird to me. That looks like a suppressed asset class.
I think because it really doesn't have any real. It's got. I think it's. I think it has a perceived value. I don't think it has a real value.
It
A
does,
house provides shelter. That's a real value. What are you going to
but
do with gold? My toilet paper.
What are you going to do with
is
Bitcoin?
gold. What do you want? You want to wipe your butt with gold bullion? No. Toilet paper is a better asset. Just saying.
do you
My
use
opinion.
a thing called a cell phone?
It has a little bit of gold in it.
How much silver, how much gold is in it? Our people are going towards solar. Did you know there's a ton of silver that goes into making solar panels? So the difference between silver and gold, most of the silver that's been mined has been used in industry, whereas gold, whoever mined it, it's still in somebody's vault somewhere. So I get that. The silver is being used up. It comes out of the ground at a ratio of 1 to 16, 1 part gold, 16 parts silver. But the ratio on that is something like 40 to 60 as far as value.
I don't think people look at it that way as the industrial value of it. I think they hold it and hoard it like McScrooge there, and you know what I mean. It's. I understand the industrial value, but people don't buy it like that.
Well,
They
the
buy
thing
it
that
because they think it's got an intrinsic value just in that it is gold. You know what I mean?
Well, it's real money. Like, there's no difference in printing a $20 bill and a $100 bill.
Right.
Same amount of work. But if you want to mine $20 worth of gold versus $100 worth of gold, it's 5 times the effort.
That is just a whole other topic. So
That's another topic.
That's a whole other thing we could get into.
But
so coming back to our inflation and interest rates. So what does all this mean for the average buyer and seller right now? Chris, Daniel?
Buy now while rates are low.
And just do it. I mean, quite honestly, I mean, it's just going to be an all-around better investment to purchase now.
Or, well, I'm going to say it really just depends on the person. It depends on your situation. If you move around a lot, then no. You should invest maybe in a rental. Because if you put 20% down, you're going to be guaranteed a 4-fold return in 30 years when your tenant pays it off. So that's a given 5 or 4-fold return. But
and I'm going to say something that's going to maybe piss off some real estate agents. Your primary home is not an investment.
It's not. It's a liability.
It's a liability.
So, and all of us, we even kind of use that vernacular. Well, invest in a home. Okay. So I would say if you're looking at investments, real estate is good, but not as a primary residence. There's ways we can do that. That's a different thing altogether. But if we're looking at what should buyers and sellers do what you're going to do anyways, regardless of the interest rates. If you need a house for your family because whatever reason you want a house, just get a house. If we're always waiting on interest rates to go up or to go down or to go sideways, you're never going to do anything, ever. So number one, I would not look at your house as an investment. This is something else. Look at it for what it is and then determine, does it have value to you at this price? If so, buy it. If not, don't.
And it comes down to not even at the price of purchase. It's the monthly payment is what it comes
that's the other point.
Right. Yeah. That's a point. Yeah.
You could have everything could be $1 million, but if they could figure out the monthly payment, they'd buy it.
That's right, because otherwise it's like, okay, and actually some of my clients, so I had some clients move out to Denver and they wanted to buy homes. I said, should I sell my investment property in Albuquerque? And this was about 3 years ago, and buy in Denver. I said, no, don't sell your property here. As a matter of fact, buy more here in Albuquerque, because I felt like Denver was already at the top of their market. Right. So buy here, rent them, use that rent to pay rent in Denver because it was cheaper. It was cheaper to rent than it was to buy. Same thing in California. It's
Wow.
cheaper to rent a house than it is to buy the house. And I think those are some things that I would watch to be a correction. When it's cheaper for you not to buy a house but to rent it, I think that's where you start to see the correction.
So where are we at in Albuquerque, you think? You've got rentals in Albuquerque. What's the
I
average
can get
mortgage
more
payment
for
right now,
rent
Chris?
than I can a house payment still.
What's the average payment, you think? 1,500, somewhere in there?
Well, let's just use that as a number. Let's say you found a 3-bedroom home, two bath and 2-car garage
Well,
for
what's the
1,500.
payment on 300,000, Chris?
A payment on 300,000, about 1,400.
All right,
So they're real similar.
So we're
It's about 1,389. I mean, going now.
Well, then we throw our taxes and everything. So you're probably 16, 17. So it's still.
Well, depending on of course, right now, I mean, you're buying a $300,000 house, and of course, your property taxes is going to be what, about 370, 376 or 345. Then your insurance rocking around $75. Depending if you have mortgage insurance, that could cost you about 110 to.
So we're kind of close to the same, really, aren't we?
Almost $2,000 for a $300,000 house.
So I think
you're looking at about 2019.
So rent. So actually, we cost more than we do to rent, don't we? I think we do.
It's going to be close, but like I say, like some other markets, it's way cheaper to rent than to buy.
That's interesting.
But other markets, there for a while, Albuquerque was getting crazy good rents, and then when the interest rates were at 3, people were refining. Those numbers look great. Now, what do you think about this in the future? Let's say rates do go up to 6 or 7.
Okay.
Then I think that the people who are sitting on a 3% interest rate are going to become the bank. They're going to sell on real estate contracts like they did back in the 80s. It's like, okay, I can't afford to buy anything with the bank because interest rates are at that time, 11%? So people who have an interest rate locked in are going to be able to sell their home, carry the note, and have a spread of whatever that difference is.
That's true. So when interest rates get higher, people will be creative. Agreed. They'll figure things out. Yeah, I think we might start seeing interest-only loans again, if interest rates get much higher. If they end up at the 5s, we definitely will.
Well, do you think that's just like renting?
They don't. Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, you get the
well, you're not gonna...
you end up as a speculative investor or a renter when it's interest only.
Oh, let's talk about some of the opportunities. Let's just say the market does correct.
All right, let's do that. So what does this whole thing mean what did we say about sellers? What does this whole thing mean for sellers? What do we do? What you're going to do?
Do what you're going to do.
If you have to buy in the same market that you're selling, it doesn't matter. You're going to buy high, sell high, sell low, buy low. Doesn't matter.
It's going to correct itself.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
You're swimming in the same pool. You're just using a different floaty toy. You know what I mean?
There's so many peas in the pool. It don't matter if you're a buyer or seller,
right?
Yeah, you're swimming in the same swimming pool, and the temperature is the same temperature in the whole pool.
Agreed.
I agree.
That makes sense. All right. So what does all this mean for investors?
If the market does correct, and let's just say prices start to trend downward, some people are going to be upside down. I know that on average, 80% of buyers or homeowners have like a 30% plus equity position. So they can't afford to sell their home. But there are some people who are buying and putting very little down. And if the market turns around, they're not going to have the money to go to the table and sell that home. For an investor, you can do a real estate contract and wrap their loan sometimes with very little down because they just want out, and you could wrap a really good rate, which I've done that with some. You let the market take its time, and eventually it will get to an 80-20, and then you refinance, put it in your name. So you can come in with very low money in, and then later refinance. So that's a great way for investors to have nothing.
Real estate contracts are going to be a good thing for investors right now.
What I think the people need to take really advantage of this equity. On their homes right now. If they have the opportunity to do equity lines of credit right now, just take advantage of that equity in your home. If you have more than 20% equity or whatever you have, a lot of the credit unions will go up to even the 90% total loan to value with some of the credit unions or even a lender. I mean, the equity lines don't cost you that much. Get a long lasting equity line, possibly, maybe a 10-year, 15-year term, because we don't know what the market's going to do 10 to 15 years. You have that accessibility for that extra money, cash flow to maybe purchasing an investment property, purchasing a fourplex, purchasing something that's going to actually make you money.
Yes.
I think they need to really take advantage of the equity, because right now it's cheap money that they could do. Because as you see, when you're going to see the interest rates, it's going to also affect the credit card rates too. And that's compounded interest versus simple interest that you have in your home.
So there we go again. Monthly costs going up again.
Yeah.
I think on the investor side, money's still cheap, honestly. I mean, if I can get money at 4 or 5% and buy something on a long-term hold, that's still cheap money. So I still think there's that opportunity with it. And honestly, with pricing being higher, if we're looking at a 20-year, 30-year hold on something, that price right now is not as big of a deterrent as it may be to, somebody who's looking short-term. So I think the investors with the long-term, vision, they're still going to do fine. They're still going to find opportunities. They're still going to take advantage of the cheap money. The money's still cheap. Don't you agree? It really is. People whining at 4%. That's still cheap money, in my opinion.
I think so.
Even 6% is cheap when you compare it to a credit card.
Or you compare it, a flip loan. I've got a deal now. I'm at 12% interest only. It's all relative, I think.
And you're just gonna,
Let's wrap up with our final question. All right, what would you tell your sister if she wanted to buy a home right now? Meaning you liked your sister, though. Let's preface it like that. You like your sister.
It depends on where she wants to buy and what she wants to buy. Because
so you are advising for and against specific areas.
Every market is different, so there's always an opportunity, and every situation is always a good thing in real estate. It just depends on where you're positioned in the market. So it's like people always ask you, "Hey, how's the market?" I always tell them it's always great. It just depends on where you're positioned.
True.
Yeah,
it's true. All right, what would you tell your sister right now, Chris?
I just scoop up a house, and again, I think it goes back to the whole what you were talking about at the beginning, Alex. What is your situation?
Mm-hmm.
What is your actual goal on this? I mean, I wouldn't say, hey, go out and get a house right now because it's great investment, but what is your actual goal? I mean, is this something that, are you planning on doing this retirement, or, what is your actual goal before you go scoop up that house?
Agreed.
Yeah. It's like, do you have commitments in where you live? It's like, I got family, I got friends, I got a career here. It's like, I can't afford to leave here. Then you definitely should just buy a house.
Agreed.
But if you don't have that, like me and Alex are exploring different parts of the country. It's like, okay, there are different opportunities somewhere else, including if you needed a job, looking at Ohio, it's a lot more affordable. And the houses are affordable. The pay is the same as New Mexico, or maybe better. So, is some other place a better option? Because as a landlord, my last rental that I put up for rent there, I put it up for rent. I thought it was the highest amount that I'd ever rented that apartment for. And I had over 100 inquiries in the first 3 days.
In Albuquerque?
In Albuquerque. So the rental market is even more intense than the housing market.
Wow.
I had so many people come and talk to me and say, yeah, currently I'm living in my whoever's basement or their garage, or I got the spare bedroom. We got an entire family living in a garage looking for a place to rent. So I have, this is just from Facebook Marketplace. This isn't all the other places.
Hey, so Daniel, so what I'm hearing is we can rent out our garage space now.
I think you could. There's such a shortage of housing, particularly in Albuquerque.
Airbnb your garage.
People are renting just.
It'll be a little tiny home. It'll be a rustic home.
or out in Florida, what I'm seeing there, it's so high demand that people aren't renting their houses. They're renting a room for $900 a month for a
Wow.
room.
See,
Those small houses. You know those small houses?
They want the biggest house they can get for the money. There's one 2 doors down from me. I think it's got like 8 bedrooms. This guy's pulling $900 per room.
Wow.
so all right. So if I was going to advise, like my sister or my son or somebody, same thing you guys are saying, long term for sure. I think they need to look at least 10 years out. I used to advise 5 years. I think we need to look 10 years now. And I would have him considering a house hack, like you guys are saying. Let's look at maybe a little bit bigger property, because I think the bigger properties are a little bit better value right now than the entry level stuff. And
Right.
let's offset that with renting out a couple of the rooms. Let's look at a 4-bedroom instead of the 3-bedroom. I think the people that are looking at things a little bit differently, I would go that route with it. You wouldn't.
That 4-bedroom that I listed this last weekend, I have 6 times the demand as I have inventory for that home.
Jeez.
Yeah,
It's even harder to find.
That's crazy.
And
That is crazy.
that type of house, 4-bedroom, at least 2,000 square foot, on the east side of the river, under 550, 525, there were only 3 on the market.
Oh my
Wow.
All right, son, we're not going to find you a 4-bedroom. We'll have to house out a 2-bedroom.
Or you find a smaller house that you can add on to.
Right.
Oh, value add of some sort. Agreed.
Right.
Some sort of a value add of some sort where you do convert the garage, but the lot, isn't completely made like a clown show, by doing that. I hate when people convert their garage. I'll be really perfectly honest. I'm like, ugh.
Right.
And we could just talk about that too. There's so much
Another
more
renovation.
stuff we could just talk about, which is kind of fun. But I think we'll start wrapping it up. I think we did good. I think we hit some good points. I mean, like we said before, there's no doubt interest rates are going up. That's inevitable. Inflation is a factor that we're going to deal with. Quick solutions: hit your boss up for a raise. Let's make more money, because it only hurts if we're not making more money. And then the big thing is, I think we're kind of all over the place a little bit on what we think is going to happen on the market. I've heard, Did you say 10 more years the market's going to be like this, Gayor? Was that you?
I'm thinking it's going to take, the reason why I say that is I think it's going to take builders that long to catch up with demand, especially with the costs of materials being so high or inaccessible right now.
Okay. So your thought, supply is going to fix this. Okay. I'm going the other route. So the other way to fix this is you kill demand, right? Because you've got 2 sides: more supply.
Where are they
or
going to
less
live?
demand.
They still got to live in a house that somebody owns.
It doesn't. Yeah, but it's going to be different. I think demand is going to change, and that's what's actually going to cause it to turn.
Unless you create more homeless camps.
Well, that's what the feds think.
That's what the feds think.
That's what the Fed thinks.
You increase that, you lower demand, because they look at different things.
But see, but then again, we go back to the fact of where I agree with you, but then we go back to the fact that that renting is
more expensive overall.
More expensive overall. So, how about throwing more money into the economy?
I'd get into that argument. I'd almost pull the whole Grant Cardone thing. If you're young and you're starting your life and your business, you don't want to spend money on water heaters. You don't want to mow the yard. You got 3 of your other buddies splitting the rent at $500 a piece. Dude, it's not going to be cheaper. It's not going to cost more than owning a house.
But it's not going to affect the inflation. Yeah,
it's not. And it's like Daniel said, it's not just the house cost. You're 20, 30 grand on every house you bought.
Right.
But like my son would be better off to put that 20, 30 grand in a business he's doing or some other thing at that point. So I'm just saying, even though the rent may be higher than what a mortgage payment is, that's not the only cost people look at.
Right.
We got time costs. We got opportunity costs. We got other factors that I think people are going to start looking at more so again, like they had previously. Previously, millennials weren't going to buy a house. They didn't care. That wasn't important to them. This is a recent shift because of COVID where we have all this demand. It's not like this is, been, I don't know. It just, I think it'll shift because of demand. That's my thought.
Another thought is, the average size house today, I think, is like 2,700 square foot.
It shrunk from what it used to be, didn't it?
Right.
Well, it used to be the average size home in the 50s was 900 square feet. That was the average size home. So we're buying, okay, we're not only buying bigger homes, we're buying bigger lifestyles. So I think that part of it is the push for housing is you don't just buy a house, you buy furniture, you buy gadgets, you buy cookware, you buy all these things, big screen TVs.
Absolutely.
A house drives consumption. So I think that whatever the marketing people there know that if you buy a house, you're going to buy a bunch of other things with it. So
Well,
I
yeah,
think
that's why they wanted everything going. And you're right. We got a shortage of furniture right now too, don't we? There's a
shortage of
shortage of
everything.
all these consumables. Agreed.
Have you gone shopping for tools lately?
Every
I
day.
don't use tools.
That.
Right here.
Jeez.
Chris, you got soft hands, Chris?
Oh no. Hey,
He does have a
got my
tool.
last.
He picks up his phone and he makes a call to a guy who's got tools.
Yeah, that's there you go.
The ladies like the soft hands, though, don't they, Chris?
Hey.
All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up for, I don't even know what we're calling this. Anyways, for Chris Gonzalez, Daniel Goer, I am Alex, and thank you.
See you guys.
What are we even calling